Hello 101, that's right, we are back. And this is now week, I don't know, there's been a bunch of them, but it's somewhere near the end. And so we need to stay on top of things because, as we addressed last week, your world was probably on fire and has probably not gone out in the short interim between that video and this one. So we need to stay abreast of what it is that we can do in this class to keep your life somewhat on path. This week, the middle part of the video is just a little bit longer. Please give it your due attention. I go into some detail about what makes good sources or what are valid sources for your argument of observation. At the end of this week, you're going to have to turn those sources in the form of an annotated collection of sources, 4 of them, in fact. So let's take a look at that now, and then we'll meet together again on the other side.
Here we are. I've given you week 15 and week 16 in this video so that you can kind of see how things build on top of each other towards our close in the semester. Let's start with where we are now, and then as we come back and meet, I'll show you how they sort of build. We have read 2 arguments from observation at this point in the semester, Cody Delestrade and Mark Stryker. Postman and Powers is a third. If some of you did that journal, then you know that that was also an argument from observation, a sourced argument from observation. They aren't just BSing all of this. They've actually done some reading and done some research. So should you. Again, your topic can be anything, literally anything, though I would caution you very, very, very carefully to stay away from legalizing weed because it's already legal. If you want legalized weed, just move to a state where it's legal. Let's not do that argument. That is infantile, sad, lonely, little depressed academic argument that's not worth it anymore. Instead, let's branch out, right? If there is something particular about the weed industry that you find compelling, then okay, that's worth our argument. That's worth our observation, and then we'll probably be interested in reading it. But aside from that, skip it, right? Just move. Go to Denver. You'll be fine. Instead, you need to think about the 4 sources that you're going to use to write your final paper. Think about the ones that Delestrade used, right? He had personal interviews of reaction from people that at festivals. He had done a little background reading on festivals. He has the source from Jimmy Kimmel as a source, a popular trade source in that sense. A variety of sources. Same thing with Stryker. He had interviewed some. He did some research about some. So should you, right? Postman and Powers were the same. Because this is an argument from observation and not a scholarly argument, your sources need not be a scholarly article. That's not the intent. While you might have one that applies, and it probably wouldn't hurt to read it and or reference it, it's not necessary. These arguments can be made entirely from a collected observation of other sources. What kinds of sources? You can have books, websites, blogs, social media posts, popular press and trade publications, including documentaries, YouTubes, TED Talks, Netflix specials, whatever, right? The world is your oyster. Anything and everything is fair game. A word about books. Unless you've read the book before, I would hesitate to use one now, only because to try to address some element of a book without having read the entire thing is both disingenuous and academically irresponsible. If, however, it is a book that is a collected series of chapters where each chapter is an individual paper from, say, an academic source of some kind, often the academic books are like that, that's fine. Or if you've read the book entirely in previous times, great, no problem. But don't just cherry pick stuff out of a book that you haven't read. Not going to go well. Websites, obviously, blogs, social media conversations. Popular press would be like, I don't know, People Magazine, Esquire, Rolling Stone, anything. Popular press that doesn't exist in paper anymore, but is also, like Bleacher Report if you're a sports person. That's a good one on the web. It's a popular press, but it's also, a web-based press. It's not a paper-based press. Literally anything. TED Talks, documentaries. It's all fair game, right? You are to choose 4, right, that relate to your topic in some way that informs the argument that you're going to be making about your topic. What do you do with the 4? Okay. For each of the 4, you follow a format that works like this. Each annotation should begin with the correct MLA citation, right? Then, underneath the MLA citation, though not bound by the hanging indention, you would include a paragraph where you give a description or summary of the source and its content. Remember, I worked this semester in summarizing and why that's so important. As a summary, you would also ideally like to include telling quotations or statistics which you feel will be making their way into your paper at this point. Right? It might change, but for now. That's one paragraph. Then a second paragraph where you talk about the sources or discuss the source's usefulness, possible biases, and credibility, right? Biases, a word about this. Okay, everybody says, well, there's no bias. There is always, 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 always a bias. This doesn't mean that it's bigoted or willfully ignorant. It means they have an audience that they must gear this thing, whatever it is, to. And in so doing, they have presented themselves with a bit of bias towards that audience. That only makes sense, right? It's not a discredit on them. So please don't conflate the definition of bias with bigotry or some sort of innate discrediting. It's just accounting for who is this author or who is this producer or who is this director trying to appeal to. And as they do that, what choices or decisions have they had to make in their composition to reach that audience, right? Like you're not going to talk in great scholarly academic prose when you're writing about code meshing, right? Instead, you're going to have a little bit of both because you need to discuss both. In which case, the possible bias there is that this is geared towards an audience of general to average accessibility. It's not geared towards a higher academic, right? That's a bias. It's an implicit bias. It's not a bad one. It's just, it exists. So please, please consider these and don't just tell me, oh, there aren't any, because there are. There always are. Sometimes it's just as much as where is it? If it's in the New York Times, who's their demographic? Who are they trying to reach? A quick Google search of anything can tell you that. Who is the demographic of the New York Times? Who is the demographic of NPR? Who is the demographic of Fox News? Who is the demographic of CNN? You'll know. And those are their possible biases, right? Your sources can be visual, like I've said, in addition to being text-based. They can be films even, newscasts, reports, podcasts are fair game, all of it, any of it. It all counts, right? It all just needs to be related to a single subject or topic that you feel like you are going to write about at the end of the semester. So you'll have 4. They go in alphabetical order of the first word listed on the MLA citation. You give the citation, then you, with the hanging indentation, then outside of the bounds of a hanging indentation, you use a paragraph for this and a paragraph for this. And when you've got 4 on your page, you're good. Can you have more than 4 in the final paper? Sure, by all means. For now, you need 4. The other thing that's due this week is the idea evaluation. Please check it out. Please, 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 please complete it. It's very helpful for me. I often use it to redo iterations of this course for future semesters. A couple of you discovered that there was no rhetorical analysis, right? That was suggested by previous class members. They said, you know what, with the argument comparison, we didn't need the other one, felt like overkill, so we just want to do the one. Great, that was a suggestion I was willing to take. Those are the kinds of suggestions I'm looking for from this semester from you, right? In completing the idea evaluation, I'm going to give you some extra credit. How you get the extra credit? Well, I don't want to see your evaluation because that sort of shoots the whole idea of it being anonymous in the foot. Instead, take the eval, and then when you're done, upload either a screenshot of the completed evaluation page, because all it says is on there is your evaluation is complete. Upload a screenshot here in this for this assignment, and or complete, or I did that idea. You get the idea, right? When you've uploaded it here, I'll give you the full extra credit, and away you go. Also, as you do this, please don't hesitate to leave some actual written comments. Oftentimes, those are way more useful. That's where the rhetorical analysis thing came from. than even the number data. The number data is great, and I can crunch numbers reasonably well, especially if I take my socks off and use my toes to count. But the most important are the sort of qualitative analysis that you guys give back. That feedback is always appreciated. And just to reassure you, I don't know who you are or what it is that you've said until well after the class is over and grades are turned in. So I can't punish you in any way for this. If you hated the class, okay, fair. But you feel free to say so. It doesn't cost you anything. It won't affect your grade in any way. All right, like I said, I left the next 2 weeks open so that you can kind of see how we build. This week, you've got the source annotation. You're trying to put together your 4 sources that you feel will help write your best draft, which is due at the end of this week, and a peer review for your fellow students. Here are the peer review questions to sort of help focus your review for your fellow students. And then in your final week is the paper getting turned in, right? And it is due May 4th at 11:59. I can't take it later than that because I need time to read it and grade it. That is the last day of the semester, and it is our final. There is no final exam. Okay, you can do this in sort of a multimodal format, and in that week, I'll do a lot more discussion of how to engage with that. Really, it just involves using Adobe, and Spark is a good way to take yours multimodal, and I'll include some instructions in here as well as in the video as to how to do that if you want to do that for the extra credit. Okay, that's week 14, and you can kind of see where we're building. It's going to move fast, so please stay on it, and please ask questions if you got them.
And there you have it, right? Your argument from observation sources, which then will become a draft, which then will become your final exam. Please, please, please give the idea evaluation your attention. It's worth a little bit of extra credit to you, if nothing else. It's definitely worth it for me. It helps me with the course, and also gives me an idea of things that are not in the course but you want. So please give it your attention. Other than that, it has been a fiery week and probably fiery end of the semester, but that's just the way it goes. So if you are tempted to fight fire with fire, just remember that fire departments usually use water. It's easier. That's it. Have a good week.